Hello everyone, my name is Julia and welcome to the Julia the Engineer channel. In the previous lesson, we created our own shapefile and started working with GIS objects. Today we are going to learn how to find specific objects and work only with the data we need. This is a very important topic because this is exactly how people usually work with data in GIS. In this lesson, we will learn how to select objects, work with the attribute table, create attribute queries, and filter layers. First, let's create a separate project for lesson 4. Just like we did before, I rename it lesson 4, save it inside the course folder, and click OK. Now let's add the shapefile that we exported earlier when working with states and cities in lesson 2. I still have that shapefile saved. Let's load it. We can choose either states or cities. Let's work with cities. The layer is now added. Next, we need to open its attribute table. Right-click the layer and choose Attribute Table. In the previous lesson, I mentioned that objects can be selected both on the map and through the table. For example, if I click on any city in the table, we can immediately see that the corresponding feature is highlighted on the map. This is extremely useful when working with large data sets. Instead of searching manually across the map, it is much easier to find the object directly in the table. Even if labels are visible on the map, using the attribute table is still usually faster and more convenient. Now let's take a closer look at selecting objects by attributes. I go to the Map tab. On the Map tab, I choose Select by Attributes. A dialog window opens. In the first field, we specify the layer where the selection will be performed. In my case, the correct layer is already selected. The next field is the selection type. We can create a new selection, add to the current selection, remove objects from the current selection, select a subset from the existing selection, switch the current selection, or clear the current selection. We will keep the default option, New Selection. Next, we choose the field that will be used for the query. In this example, it is most convenient to use the class field. Then we define the condition. For example, equals, does not equal, starts with, does not start with, and many others. To keep things simple, let's use equals. Now we specify the value. I open the list of available values and choose town. Then I click apply. At first glance, nothing seems to happen. We do not clearly see selected objects on the map yet. However, if we look at the bottom of the table, we can see that 149 objects out of 4,186 are selected. That means ArcGIS found 149 features where the class field equals town. Let's verify that. We can scroll through the table and confirm that all selected records indeed contain the values with town. This allows us to instantly find all required objects at once. Now let's add another condition. We still want class equals town, but this time we will also filter by state. We choose the state field, select a state abbreviation, and apply the query again. If 0 objects are selected, that simply means there are no towns matching that condition in the selected state. Let's try another one. Now we can see that 12 objects are selected. These are all towns located in the selected state. So far, we have been working with the standard query builder, but you may notice that there is also an SQL mode. Here, instead of using drop-down menus, we can type or paste SQL expressions directly. For example, I can quickly replace town with city and run the query again. Now the selection changes accordingly. Another very useful feature is the ability to save queries. If you create a complex expression and want to reuse it later, you can save it and load it again in future projects. This makes working with GIS data much faster and more efficient. Instead of manually searching across thousands of objects, we can instantly find exactly what we need. Now let's talk about something called a definition query. First, I clear the current selection. Then I open the layer properties. Inside the layer properties, there is a section called definition query. The interface looks very similar to the select by attributes window. We choose a field, define a condition, and apply the query. But now something different happens. Instead of simply selecting objects, ArcGIS hides all features that do not match the query. For example, if we filter class equals town, all other cities disappear from the map and from the table. At the bottom of the table, we now see only 149 records instead of more than 4,000. This is the key difference. A normal selection is temporary. It simply highlights objects so we can work with them. It does not change the layer itself. A definition query changes the visible content of the layer. Objects are not deleted physically, but they are hidden from view until the query is removed. If we go back to the layer properties and disable the query, everything appears again. And that is all I wanted to show you today about selecting and filtering objects in ArcGIS Pro. I hope this lesson was useful for you. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to like the video. And I will see you in the next lesson. Bye for now.